Hello, and welcome to a brand new series produced by Norwood House Press, where we introduce some of the faces behind the pages responsible for bringing our readers their favorite titles. Today, I'm here with Mark Stewart, the writer responsible for many of our popular sports series, such as First Touch Soccer and Team Spirit. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
I was thinking you could start things off for us by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living.
I am a writer, an editor, what they now call a content producer. I also do a lot of work in branding and marketing for big companies over the years, like Sesame Street and the NBA and some boring stuff like insurance companies. That's what it is to be a writer these days. You have to be sort of nimble and try and use your skills in any way possible and sharpen those skills all the time. But in the end, it all comes down to good storytelling, and that's, I think, what works in the books I've done for Norwood House.
Were you a young writer, or was that a passion that developed later in life for you?
I come from a family of writers, or I should say a publishing family, mostly in newspapers and magazines, but every generation would do something different. My grandfather was the Sunday editor of the New York Times for many, many years. My mother and father were both journalists and editors for major magazines, and my father for the New York Times. So, often what happens is you grow up around the dinner table, and that's the discussion. And so, obviously, in a family like that, words were very important. Everyone was editing everybody else, so you become a good editor almost by default.
What are some of the particular challenges you face with writing a children's book that you might not face with other types of books for different audience ages?
I don't find it particularly challenging. I do know from talking to other writers and to other people I've worked with that the things that are most challenging are the things that I consider my strength, which is really the ability to slip into the shoes of your reader, whether your reader is 7 or 11 or 15 or a high school senior, and not only see your writing and your organization through their eyes, getting from one thought to another thought to another thought, seeing the world through their eyes. What are they capable of understanding and putting together, and what things do you really need to help them put together? And then what things you should just sort of stay away from, because that's down the road in terms of their comprehension. Even if you're writing a book for an 8-year-old, you've got to research it for an adult. You want to make sure you have all that information at your fingertips, because then you can pick and choose the things that will get that young reader to the place you want them to go.
Your creative work involves over 250 nonfiction books for people in the young adult audiences. How do you do your research? Every author seems to have their own way of doing it. I'd love to hear more about how you go about that process.
Well, back in the days when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there was no internet. So if you wanted to acquire all the facts you needed, you had to find hard copies of things. And if that meant multiple trips to the library, it was sort of like tick-tock, time's running out. All of a sudden, what you're making as a writer or as a book packager or whatever is getting lower and lower and lower. So what I learned very quickly is to build up a library of books and periodicals that I could go back to and that I had indexed myself and were organized. At one point, I think I had 7,000 nonfiction books and somewhere in the order of 15 or 20,000 magazines, newspapers. What I assumed would happen when the internet came in the mid-90s and was easy to access was that eventually all that stuff would become obsolete. But what I found was, for the most part, most really good information still isn't on the internet, because it does take someone physically to take what's in a book or what's in a magazine or in a newspaper and put it there in a way that it's easy to access, easy to understand, and it's an efficient process to find the information you need. And I would say it's about 50% easier than it was back then, but I still have a huge, huge advantage that I use every single day.
I was told that you have quite a bit of a sports collection / memorabilia. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about it.
For the most part, it's all in trying to get the research material. I would end up buying collections. I once bought out a whole baseball card store, immediately got rid of the baseball cards, kept all the other stuff. In educational books, you have a little bit of leeway in terms of what you can use as images. So I think a lot of the books I did for Norwood House, and hopefully will continue to do, are very different than, when you open them up and then you open up a similar book from another publisher, you will notice immediately that they have a very different look. And it's not so much the design, it's like, I've never seen that picture, I've never seen that picture, I've never seen that. It could be a book about the Yankees where you see the same pictures about Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Derek Jeter over and over and over again. I have a lot of things I can slip in there that really are a point of differentiation for a publisher, and Norwood House appreciated that. Several others have too. So in the process of acquiring this stuff, some things did stand out at me, and I kind of tack them up on the wall. A lot of people have framed jerseys and stuff that's signed. That's really not what I'm into. I like stuff that I can look at each one of these things and tell you the story, or tell you what's happening, or sort of infer from what's happening why it's a good photo or an interesting photo, and or painting or print or whatever. And I just get a lot of pleasure from looking at it. You can, and I will say this to other writers, if they have a collection of something, or they have a specific knowledge, encyclopedic knowledge in something, if you have some either tangible asset or intellectual asset that separates you from the pack, you can certainly talk to a publisher and try and build a book or build a series around, this thing that not only makes you different, but then if it's done correctly, will make them different. And that's something I always try and do with the books that I'm involved with. Because listen, I started writing these books in the 1990s. So a lot of my readers, that's a long time ago, a lot of my readers have kids of their own. And I've run across people who said, oh my gosh, I read all your books when I was at camp or in school, or yours were the only books I would read, or things like that. There were a lot of people I've heard for over the years, especially on the websites I'm involved with, where they'll say, are you the same Mark Stewart, who wrote this book, that book, that book? Said, I was really reluctant to learn how to read. It just wasn't my thing. And then I got a hold of your books, and there was like something about them that made me feel, sort of empowered me, made me feel I knew more than my teachers, or I had this sort of baked in interest, and it really sort of got me into reading. And then I started reading other books, and here I am, a graduate of this university or that university or something like that. So those are always fun to get. You like to think you leave this earth having made some sort of an impact, and it's nice when people actually tell you that.